Welcome in to the Blitz podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Kane Schwartz, and we're a little light today on the crew, but we do have our very own Mr. Mitchell fucking McDonald in-house. How you doing, dog? How are the various birds behind you in your background today? We haven't really talked about those birds before because this is like a routine thing for you now.
Yeah, this is just podcast central for me. This is where we did the live show at, and it just has much better Wi-Fi than my house, so I just come to my sister's house instead of using my own crappy Wi-Fi that wouldn't support Skype when we tried. So it's just become my home base. I'm doing pretty well. I just finished up a workshop for PT school, and unfortunately, if you guys can hear a little bit of a lisp, I chipped my tooth last night. I did it a few years ago, and they put a cap on it, and I got a tough strip on my finger, and it just wasn't coming off. So I was trying to get it started, and I bit into it, and I went, "Oh shit!" And it just fell right out of my mouth. So
how'd you do it the first time?
It was the night of my 21st birthday.
Fuck,
I can't exactly tell you the clear story, but it happened.
That's it. You just got to leave it at that. Chipped your tooth on the night of the 21st. Most people will understand. But yeah, good shit, bro.
Me versus some tile floor didn't end very well.
I've had the only other person that I've seen with like serious like tooth trauma was Drew Warfield in high school. He he was taking a shower and he tripped and like fell and like obviously hard like tile in his bathroom and falls and all of his front teeth just bam right into the ground.
Oh.
Yes, and they all were like three of them were cut in half, like bent in different ways. Like his whole face was like gushing, and he still came to school. He's a fucking animal. Like I was like, dude.
I just look like Lloyd Christmas with this. I look like I'm straight out of Dumb and Dumber. I look like white trash. I got dead birds behind me.
Exactly, man. But it's good shit. You fit the role perfectly.
Oh yeah, white trash with my mustache. Yeah, I'm just trying to fill into the role here, man.
I've kind of got a white trash-ish hat on. I copped this at Goodwill the other day. I was out running errands for my internship, and we hand out like schedules and stuff to like businesses. And Goodwill, obviously they're like a corporation, and we asked, and they were like, "Oh, we're really not supposed to do that sort of thing." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine. I will cop this hat for $2 though." So yeah,
that is well worth $2.
Oh yeah, you kidding? I saw it and I was like, $2? Psh, if I don't have $2 to spend on this hat, I'm fucking tripping. So yeah, but that's a message we want to send over here at the Blitz. Make football violent again. That's a message we can all get behind. Other statements like this.
Bring back that up the middle, like head leveling hits, like really loose.
Exactly. Nothing that's gonna like, I don't know, call CT in every single player or
knock the wind
get
out.
A nice knock the wind out of, yeah, for sure. So, all right, if it weren't obvious enough, we are doing, to those listening on the audio podcast, well, you probably know for the title, but we are doing the NFC North today, and that is our first time diving in the NFC since last year as far as off-season recaps go. So excited to get started on the NFC, a whole new conference. Definitely not as exciting as the AFC. We talked about it a ton, how there was an exodus from the NFC to the AFC this past offseason. Guys like Devonte Adams, he just comes off the rip, like right off the head. Russell Wilson, etc. But anyway, AFC is stacked. NFC North definitely not as stacked anymore. And to be honest, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think that the sole reason that Tom Brady came back was because he was like, are you kidding? Like, he looked at the NFC and he was like, oh my God, bro. Like, I could do this shit standing on my head. Like, I could make it to another division championship, like, without blinking an eye. Don't you think that was, like, incorporated in the decision a little bit?
I mean, yeah, but I also think at the same time he wasn't ready to retire, and someone just leaked it, and you're like, all right, whatever, I guess I got to retire for like a month or two.
Yeah, true. But he's got himself set up on a really nice TV deal now. So I don't know why you wouldn't leave football to go do that. $500 million.
I mean, that hundreds of millions of dollars will be
Literally
waiting for him,
like
regardless,
a lifetime contract. There's not even like it's. They basically just said, "Hey, we're gonna give you $500 million," and that's that.
They threw a fat stack of cash on the table, just like the Browns did with Watson, and said, "Here you go.
Exactly.
Take it whenever you start here."
So, all right. Let's dive into the NFC North. And the first team that we got on the slate is the Green Bay Packers. So, on the addition side, they bring in wide receiver Christian Watson to replace Davante Adams. I don't know if you could call it that, but you could definitely call it bringing in another receiver after the receiver room is now depleted with the loss of guys like MBS and Davante Adams. Kind of stinks. So, they bring in Christian Watson in the second round of the draft, and Aaron mentioned it actually on draft night on the Pat McAfee show. He was like, Green Bay's had pretty good success with second-round wide receivers. I mean, Devontae was a second-rounder. Jordy Nelson was a second-rounder. Randall Cobb, I'm pretty sure, was a second or third-rounder. So those guys tend to pan out in Green Bay under Aaron Rodgers. But, yeah, so wide receiver Christian Watson comes out of North Dakota State, right? Yep, small town guy. But then also they
had a really good draft too. We didn't mention them all, but
for sure. And these were their top 3 picks right here. Christian Watson came in the second round, but probably the most notable. But to a surprise to a lot of people, in the first 2 picks that they had in the first round, they took defensive tackle Devonte Wyatt. But first they took linebacker Quay Walker, both Georgia guys, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's an obvious game plan there. Their defense is wrecking everybody.
So you load up on the Georgia Bulldogs. But I'll just lead off the bat before we get into the departures, because basically all they did was add via the draft. So, what did you think of the draft? Obviously, you were just saying some good things. Elaborate on that.
I mean, Quay Walker was probably the only pick I did not like, because he was such a reach. Granted, there was a lot of talk about him sneaking into the first. They might not have had him at the second pick for Wyatt, but it was a great draft. They even approached the offensive line, which is a bit of an issue for them, because they don't know what's going to happen. Sean Ryan was a guy I was a little concerned about. He's kind of like one of those flex tackles. You can move him in at guard or on right tackle or left tackle. But with Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins, Elton's probably going to leave soon, you need that next guy up. And I think Ryan can prosper, because they just find a way to bring in tackles and make them good. And then you have yet another deep threat guy in Romeo Doubs. It's a nice addition. They need bodies at receiver, so pretty much anything you're throwing out there is going to work at that point. And then they might have got one of the bigger steals in Kingsley and Igbare, because he's pretty much a pure pass rusher, not great against the run deep, but you need bodies. They have good pass rushing, and bringing another rotational guy to keep them all fresh. This defense is probably as stacked as Aaron Rodgers has ever had. Probably, I would say, better than the one in the Super Bowl run.
So at one point he did have Jay Peppers, Clay Matthews, AJ Hawk, BJ Raji. Like those were some dogs. But I mean, if you want to, I don't know if we can put them into that category yet. But if you're saying that they have the potential, fuck yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that. And Aaron's got to be pretty happy about that too. I mean, we're always talking about how he wants his wide receiver, get him, they haven't drafted a wide receiver in the first round since when? 1990s. Exactly. 90s, so they've had.
He wouldn't even.
Right. It hasn't been an option for them for 25 years. So you'd like to see them improve on the defensive side. Makes your job easier. So love to see that. But yeah, that was a big problem for them early on last year, was the defense. There was a lot of concern there. A lot of guys weren't playing up to expectations, but then you had guys that were exceeding expectations. Russell Douglas, right?
Yeah, they have a really good cornerback room too.
Yeah, because they've got Jair, they've got Stokes, who was a first rounder just last year, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so you got amazing.
Yeah,
And then Dobbins.
I mean, they're cooking on the secondary. And obviously they beefed up the middle of the pack there with Devonte Wyatt and Quay Walker. So love to see that. But let's dive into the departure side for the Green Bay Packers. And first off, offensive coordinator Nate Hackett is out of town. He was the offensive coordinator just last year. Helped Aaron Rodgers grab another MVP award and then skedaddled. But Aaron has spoke. I mean, it's not like he was going to shit on him, but he spoke pretty highly of him when he moved over to Denver. So like to see that. But it is Aaron Rodgers and it is the floor, so they should be fine. But also on the departure side, biggest one obviously is wide receiver Davante Adams. Huge deal. They trade him over to the Raiders to add on an additional first-round pick and then some. So they got really nice return for Davante, but, I mean, it's never going to be enough for a guy like Davante. What do you think of the whole trade as a whole?
I liked it a lot better than what Miami had to do to get Tyreek, because they just gave up a first and a second this year and called it a day. I mean, it was worthwhile because that's Derek Carr's guy. And running out there with Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller leaves you with some concern, especially considering Waller's getting a little older and he showed signs of being moderately injury prone last year. So if Waller goes down, you're left with Hunter Renfrow. If Renfrow goes down, you're left with Darren Waller, and that's it. They definitely need to...
Don't forget the best wide receiver to ever play the national game of football, and that is Zay motherfucking Jones. So...
biggest departure of the golf.
100%. But yeah, I mean, they weren't going to give him that money, and I really understand where Davante is coming from, because a lot of people were like, Aaron was like, oh, like, we felt like we gave him an offer that was, like, fair and should, like, I felt like he was going to be pretty happy with, basically talking like the GM, because he basically is. But Davante, he came out in a press conference, not like, it was, I'm pretty sure when OTAs opened. Yeah, exactly. And he was like, you know, from my perspective, I only have, like, Aaron's going on year-by-year basis now. Like, he could next year be like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm going to retire now. Like, hey, he's got an option, like a player option after each year. And Davante, as soon as Rodgers leaves, then he's like shit out of luck, you know? He's got Jordan Love to deal with. I mean, he might be great and all, but who knows? But you got a guy, you move over to a guy like Derek Carr who's solidified in a position at the quarterback position for a while in Vegas. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Davante. Packers fans, like, I could understand. Obviously, I understand the frustration, but got to see it from Davante's point of view. And like Aaron,
well, he was about to leave for nothing. If
yeah,
they didn't
exactly.
trade him
and
anyway.
he probably wouldn't have played under the tag, you know. So, but yeah. Also in the wide receiver room, they say goodbye to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, otherwise known as MVS. He signs a 3-year, $70 million deal, $45 million deal. Yeah, I think it was 45, something like that. But 3-year.
I think it was averaging over like $10 million a year, which is absurd.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Christian Kirk ruined the wide receiver
absolutely
market,
fucking ridiculous. And the fact that MVS, we were talking about last week, that MVS got so much more than Juju just blew me away, you know. But yeah, MVS is also headed out of town. MVS just feels like one of those guys that a guy like Aaron Rodgers or a guy like Tom Brady can turn into a good receiver. You know, like without those guys.
Poor Patrick.
Yeah, very true.
He'll probably be
very true.
Solid still. If he went anywhere else, that would be a ridiculous contract to hand out. But he's got way more surefire hands than Nicole and even Byron Pringle, who's now on the team we'll talk about in a few minutes. But he's a much better deep threat than what they had.
For sure. Also, on the departure side, to wrap it out, they've got outside linebacker Zadarius Smith leaving Green Bay, and he's headed over to Minnesota, which we'll get into in a little bit. But now that we're looking at all these ads drops throughout the offseason, we're just thinking about it. Also, it would be important to mention that Aaron Rodgers also got an extension through all this. I mean, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but he also got at the time, it was the most guaranteed money until like maybe even a couple hours later Deshaun got his contract. But yeah, exactly. But he did at a time have the most guaranteed money in NFL history. But yeah, he signed, I believe it's 3-4 year extension, but he does have a player option after every year.
I think it goes up to 5 years
right.
with 2 dead years. You can just push the money off into that if they're having cap issues.
So yeah, you got to throw that into there. But as we're looking at it all in front of us, what are some of your initial thoughts, man? What stands out to you as far as like favorite moves, least favorite moves? Hit me with
it. Favorite moves, obviously just the draft as a whole was good because they consistently get those gritty guys in the trenches that somehow find a way to turn into superstars there. And maybe Christian Watson, he wasn't the receiver I think they'd go for, but he could turn into something because Aaron Rodgers just elevates anybody he's with. But at the same time, you can live with the Devonte Adams one if they don't have the worst receiving core. Well, second worst next to probably Chicago receiving core in the NFL. And Za'Darius definitely hurts, but drafting Kingsley might be enough to kind of mask that, but they have a pretty good rotation going on in Green Bay, so I'm not that worried about the pass rushing situation. But overall favorite move, I kind of like the offensive line moves they got in Sean Ryan and Zach Tom. They're two guys that I thought had the potential to be really quality offensive linemen in the NFL, and they just landed in the perfect scenario because Green Bay just pumps them out like it's nothing, man. I do have one of our hypotheticals from last week, but would you rather? It's going to be a friend of the podcast, Mr. AJ Dillon, your man.
The boss, 2.0.
All right. So, would you rather take AJ Dillon or Kareem Hunt?
Kareem Hunt. Okay, so the passing value that Kareem Hunt offers over AJ Dillon, but AJ Dillon can catch passes, and he's.
He can.
Yeah,
he's not
exactly. He's pretty halfway decent at it.
It's just Aaron Jones is better,
exactly.
so they didn't get the one.
But go ahead.
Next one, AJ Dillon versus Josh Jacobs.
I might go Dillon too, because
especially with the injury.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Josh Jacobs was kind of supposed to be that bulldozer kind of guy that AJ Dillon. I mean, he's a little quicker he's definitely quicker on his feet for sure, but he was supposed to be that physical kind of running back that AJ Dillon is now. And Josh Jacobs, he's running into injuries left and right, and it's not easy stuff to get over. Like turf toe, that can right, exactly. That sticks with you throughout the season, So it's like lingering. And there was some other lingering shit that Josh Jacobs ended up with, but
he's always got something.
Right. But obviously, yeah, go ahead.
And then I got 2 more. J.K. Dobbins, and then out of spite, Najee Harris. Just because Jaden's not on.
Okay. So what was the first one? Okay.
J.K. Dobbins.
Dude, you can't put J.K. Dobbins over anybody right now, bro. He hasn't played an NFL season yet. Come on now. People are.
He played 2 years ago, but he didn't really get that much workload. I like J.K., and his receiving game's probably just a notch above him, but I'm still sticking with Dillon because he's.
Dude, Dillon. All right, quotable moment here, possibly. I think A.J. Dillon, the running back class is really, as far as fantasy goes, pretty weak as far as, what it's been in the past. Mostly the case has been, hey, okay, you definitely go running back in the first, and then you figure out the rest of your draft. But this year, I don't think that's the case. I think you're going wide receiver in the first round. You're thinking about...
I don't know. The running backs look deep this year. Last year, you were, scraping for, 8 to 10 guys, and now they have 15.
Well, that's my point. You could get in. I think AJ Dillon has the potential Well, I think, all right, here's my hot take for sure. I think he will have a better fantasy output this year than Aaron Jones. And I think A.J. Dillon will be a top 10 fantasy running back when it's all said and done at the end of the year.
I'm not willing to put him above Aaron Jones because Aaron Jones could likely be their leading receiver this year because who else is he going to throw to? But I definitely see him getting more of a bulk of the run.
Yeah, 100%. And we, towards the end of the year, A.J. Dillon looked absolutely phenomenal. And I was going to say Javonte Williams-esque because I don't want to say Derrick Henry, even though they came, Javonte and A.J. Dillon basically came in together. So, but yeah, he's a bulldozer, man. I was those third down, to drain the clock at the end of the game, A.J. Dillon is a dog, So, but yeah. Oh,
he's going to get
for sure. How long? So they signed Aaron Jones to a 3-year deal. And then A.J. Dillon's.
Was it 4? I thought it was 4 for 70 or something ridiculous for running back.
Mm-hmm.
He's making a lot.
I know. I think you might be onto something saying that he's the number one passing option. Because I remember last year at times getting extremely angry. Because I was like, I can go out there and fucking dish it off to Aaron Jones every single play. I was like, I could do that. This guy Aaron Rodgers is a fucking fraud. I forget what game it was, but he.
I mean, he had a 60 or 70 yard catch in that NFC Championship game or NFC divisional game.
Fucking pumping it and I feel like we'll see a lot of that this year. But I also think A.J. Dillon between the tackles, he's going to be a dog this year, so I'm excited for that. But all right, let's move on to some finishing thoughts for the Green Bay Packers. So what are we thinking as our overall offseason grade? I'll go ahead and go first. And like what they got for Devonte. I love it. Devonte is a better wide receiver than Tyreek Hill. So it should have warranted more return. But you say goodbye to MVS. He's whatever. He's just one of those guys that Aaron Rodgers makes better. I'll go ahead and give it a B, because I feel like they're starting to set themselves up pretty nice for the future now. But this is also a win now team pretty much because
win now mode.
Right.
Yeah, he's got Aaron. He's 40. He's
right. You could just dip out after this year. And the big thing with the Packers also, why didn't they bring in a veteran wide receiver? Guys like OBJ, Julio makes the most sense.
Odell,
for me.
I am not confident
Wow.
Odell even playing this year. It was the same ACL and he did it in February. The timeline's usually 9 to 12 months, but that's just your first ACL tear. He's coming off the same exact one, didn't even finish the full season on it.
Well, that's why I guess everybody's so touchy. Obviously, why everybody's so touchy on OBJ. Do you think he gets signed at all?
If he has some miraculous recovery, they might sign him when he can start jogging and stuff, just so he can learn to play.
Do you think he gets? Do you think he gets a contract?
I think he just needs the whole year off because you
think he gets a contract before?
From a second ACL tear, back-to-back seasons on the same knee.
Yeah, and I mean, you would know better than anybody. Do you think he gets a contract before the season starts?
If somebody signs before the season starts.
Yeah, fruity.
They're banking on old OBJ. I don't know if he'll be quite the same. He's going to have to go through rehab back-to-back years on a major
OBJ
surgery.
loves the shit talk.
He might not be as nimble and agile as what he was.
He loves this kind of talk, though, man. He loves the comeback story. I mean, he's done it 3 times.
I mean, Julio would be beautiful in this situation. I'd love that. I've been taking him in best ball drafts where you keep him for the whole season, trying to get ahead of the curve before they sign him or something. Just trying to get that 15th rounder to get me
because it feels like obviously Julio doesn't have the same level of speed or quickness or route running that Davante Adams has at this point, but
he's poor man's Davante Adams at this point.
Right. But he is that same type of physical wide receiver, obviously. And it is fucking Julio Jones. So, Aaron Rodgers, right, exactly. And you've got your fast guys, you've got Lazard. you've got Christian Watson now. Like, you've got guys that can go deep. Julio's not one of those guys, but you need, like, a solid target that you can, hey, this guy's going to, because who's it going to be? It's not going to be fucking Robert Tonyan.
Someone you can build, like, a rhythm with on curl routes, something to pick up a few yards at a time, and that's what Julio's going to have to provide at the other
exactly. But I think Julio makes so much sense in Green Bay. I would love to see him.
Especially if you're win now. My grade for them, I would have to say B-. Because this team, the defense might have improved slightly, but the offense plummeted by losing Devonte. They had a great draft. That's the only thing saving them from a C on my grade. You're just in win now mode. You can't afford to waste it's the waning years of Aaron Rodgers' career. He's in his twilight years, and you're throwing him out there with Allen Lazard as your number one wide receiver. That's not a winning formula. I know just a few years ago, they were so ground and pound when LaFleur first got there, and everybody was wondering if Rodgers had fallen off. But good grief, you have to give him something to throw.
Like, you can't just create a Davante Adams, like, from scratch once again. Like, that's my thing with this year.
It takes some years. Devonte wasn't even that good coming out. Like, he was okay for a rookie in the first few years, and then he broke out a few years ago.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
It does not. And that's like, and I know we're getting a little off topic here, but, well, I mean, it is still football. But, like, the mentality I felt like with this draft, especially with the Titans, drafting, why am I blanking? Traylon Burks. Like, everybody was like, oh, that's just a replacement for A.J. Brown. Like, since when do guys, like, come out, like, wide receivers come out and they're automatically, like, A.J. Browns or Devonte Adams? Like, it's like, what?
Or Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. I mean, there's been a few breakouts lately that kind of clouds our judgment. Just kind of like with the tackle classes. People expect them to come out and be great because Rashawn Slater and Tristan Wirfs did it. Everybody forgets it usually takes a few years for a rookie to build up to the level of competition and playing experience.
High expectations, to say the least. So, crazy stuff. But they also did, one thing that we didn't put on this list, they did bring in Sammy Watkins to help out a little bit. But keyword being a little bit right there. So
him and Julio are going to alternate games when they're injured. Then one of them's the other one's on the bench.
Solid offensive game plan. But okay, so let's check out their. Now that we've got our overall grades in, let's check out the strength of schedule and over under on the win totals. So over under on the win total is sitting at 11 right now at BetMGM. And also their strength of schedule is in comparison to the rest of the teams. They are yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. They have the 22nd easiest schedule or 22nd hardest schedule in the league. So that is AKA the 10th best easiest schedule in the league. So gotta love that, when you're playing guys like the Lions and the fucking Bears this year, which I put them last intentionally because we will be going through.
Yeah, they have 5 exactly. Pretty much.
So over under sitting at 11, and obviously I just said 10th easiest schedule in football according to strength of schedule. So what are you feeling over under on the win total? What you got?
Oh, I'm pounding that over. I know the Vikings might give them some issues, and there's a few good teams in the NFC. They have to play the 1 seeds from last year. So there's going to be tough games in there. But this is still a really good football team. They can just ground and pound and win games with the defense and running game at this point. I have no worries about them making it to a.
And then they got this guy, I don't know if you heard of him, Aaron Rodgers, at quarterback. He's pretty good. Yeah, if your ground and pound game doesn't work, then you should be in good shape. Yeah,
he can make some magic
for sure. But yeah, I'll go ahead and pound that over as well. I mean, you were mentioning it, how many teams in the NFC would you put ahead of the Green Bay Packers? It's got to be like
maybe the Rams, maybe the Bucks. Then it's like teams that he can beat with them. After that, I guess we don't know who's going to be the quarterback for the 49ers at the second. I mean, they're saying Trey Lance, but it's going to be hard to dump Jimmy
Right.
G.
No, I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to put the 49ers for the Packers. But, like, the Bucks, a maybe. Rams, a maybe. A Cardinals, a severe maybe. And then...
That's a doubtful.
Right,
Maybe
exactly.
doubtful.
So, got my security system popping off because people are going in and out the door. But yeah, I'll go ahead and pound the over at 11 wins. Love to see that. But yeah, we're feeling good about the Packers going into this year. I mean, as long as they got that dude named Aaron over there playing quarterback, they should be just fine. And also, I think him winning back-to-back MVPs and with everything that he went through this past season, I think that is one of the biggest fuck yous to sports media in the history of sports. Like,
he just held on to him for a year straight. Just kept him on the line and kept bringing up drama after drama.
And now he just exclusively appears on the Pat McAfee show, which pisses off like every media outlet. I love it, dude. If I were in Aaron's position.
Schefter
yeah, for sure, dude. I'm off the Schefter train. I'm full Rappaport now. Like, ever since.
I mean, after he's had so many spelling errors in his tweets that he's trying to get out first, and then pretty much desecrating Dwayne Haskins' grave by saying his career was a failure, it's rough. And after going through confidential medical info for JP Pete's finger.
Oh, shit, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, when he blew his hand up, he actually got, somehow he got a hold of his medical files and took a picture of it, saying he had 3.5 fingers left on that hand.
Holy shit.
It was sketchy.
Dude, he's down bad. He's just trying to get canceled now. Like, holy shit. Yeah.
He's been trying.
All right.
And then they glorify him on ESPN for working so hard to do shady stuff.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if he's, holding people at gunpoint to get his information. He's got the doctor in the doctor's office. Fucking Uzi on his forehead. Give me his confidential pictures.
He's kidnapping their families if you don't want to see the kids again.
I have your entire family in my trunk. Give me all of your information. So, anyway, let's move on. Let's move on from the Schefter-Rappaport debate, and let's move on from the Green Bay Packers, and let's dive into Tyler's very own Minnesota Vikings. And this should be a fun one. I wish Tyler were here with us to debate, but we can go ahead and shit on your team while you're not here. I mean, we did it with Mitch.
Yeah, you guys did it with the Chargers. It's good. It's nice to have the outside influence and non-bias.
Exactly. Did you like the whole conversation? I thought Staley was really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think if he misses the playoffs, obviously he's fired, but he's got another year to do it because you don't want to waste this rookie contract by going new offensive system to new offensive system, new coaching staff to new coaching staff. I don't think he's done if he doesn't finish the job this year, but if he doesn't make playoffs, he's done. Also, I think he might have missed it in the graphic. It's Sebastian Joseph Day. Because I noticed Marquez Valdez-Scantling just said Valdez.
You forgot the dashes, or Jaden did. It's okay.
It's too much to write in there anyway. You don't want to make it 2 lines, I guess.
Yeah,
and kind of ruin the graphic.
All aesthetically pleasing right now, you know. But let's go ahead and dive into it. So, on the addition side for the Minnesota Vikings, they bring in head coach Kevin O'Connell, who was the offensive coordinator with the Rams just last year. He was a former quarterback. I'm not sure if he did make his way into the NFL, but he definitely played at the college level. And everything that I've heard, obviously I don't have sources telling me anything, but the interviews that I've seen and the stuff that his players are saying about him, apparently he's hot shit. You know,
I mean, you come from that Shanahan tree. You got something going.
For sure. And if you lead the Rams in their first season with a new quarterback and new receiving weapons to a Super Bowl, that's pretty fucking sweet. So, also lose Cam Akers week 1 and then have to figure that out. Or before week 1 in training camp. Right,
and still win the Super Bowl.
And we'll see if he can turn Kirk Cousins into the next Matthew Stafford. We shall see.
All right. I got to bring it up now for the Would You Rather since we brought up Kirk naturally. So would you rather, Tyler threw this one out there, Kirk or Trevor Lawrence?
Kirk or Trevor Lawrence? Gotta go Trey Law. Gotta go Trey Law.
Kirk. I mean, we kind of knew where I stood after the Davis Mills contest.
I got it.
But he's just shown me he can be an above average quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence?
That's all I need.
Yeah.
No, Kirk. I'm taking Kirk.
But Trevor Lawrence is like a franchise guy. Like, Kirk Cousins is definitely...
He never had, like, the major flashes in college of, like, Heisman potential, even though he won one of the best programs in the
You just said that Trevor Lawrence never had Heisman flashes?
Beat out. Never had the true Heisman flashes. He was always getting beat out by guys like Baker, Kyler, Tua. They were all...
I also think a lot of that...
He was solid and steady throughout, but he was on one of the best college...
This is the whole narrative around, like, the reason that, I mean, I don't know, I'm not saying this is the explicit reason, but I think a lot of the reason that Trevor Lawrence didn't win those Heismans over guys like Baker and guys like that, like Tua, the reason he didn't win is because Trevor Lawrence has been balling out since his freshman year. Like, I mean, people have kind of just been like, oh, like, Trevor Lawrence is always going to be here, but how about, let's give it to the guy who's only going to be here, like, this year, because he had, like, an abnormal year, you know? But
he didn't even show, like, the flashes Deshaun had at Clemson. He looked like he was the real deal. I don't know why he wouldn't get more hype out of the draft. Maybe the rub and tug thing was kind of under the table talk, about pun intended on the under the table thing there. But he stepped up to the number one seed of Alabama and just dragged that team on his back, made big play after big play, clutch play after clutch play. He kind of showed that superstardom. And I feel like Lawrence kind of faded away from it in some of those playoff series games.
Agree to disagree. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback prospect, like, forever. And then he came in, he was drafted number one because he was the undebatable, like, number one quarterback prospect that we would see, like, a generational prospect. And he looked like a completely different quarterback after Urban Meyer left last year. Like, imagine trying to play your...
He looked like a regular rookie quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Like in his last game against Indianapolis. Like, yeah, exactly. Like against a really good defense in Indianapolis, like he was really starting to hit his stride under Bevel last year. So, anyway, I like Trey. Yeah, go ahead.
Got a few more. Jimmy G
Kirk
versus Kirk.
Wow.
Probably leaning Jimmy just a little, just because he finds a way to get there. Then I've got your boy Carson Wentz.
Gotta go Kirk. Kirk's been winning more than Carson has, you know. I think those are very similar comps, though, right there.
They're very close. They're probably like 14, 15 quarterbacks.
But Carson, like, I would say that Carson has the potential still to play at a very, like, top 5 level.
But you know his floor is way lower than Kirk's, because Kirk's floor is pretty much
exactly. He's just the middle of the line kind of guy, you know. But I miss him in fucking Washington. So.
And then two more: Matt Ryan, and then Baker Mayfield.
Ryan or Kirk Cousins. I gotta go Kirk. I think
I'm giving a slight edge over Matty Ice, and then I'm taking Baker. He was banged up so much last year, and the last time we saw him fully healthy, he looked good.
No, I mean, he won. Like, the whole Baker situation is absolutely crazy.
He beat the Steelers in the playoffs.
He handed your franchise the first playoff win in literally forever. And then you go ahead and give $300 million guaranteed to the guy who's ending his massages inappropriately. Apparently 66 of them, which is interesting. The man brings his own towel. Like, dude.
Hole right in the middle.
All right. Jesus Christ. Okay. Let's keep going with the Minnesota Vikings talk. We just had a little name game with Kirk Cousins, but, I mean, it's hard, like... Would you call Kirk Cousins a franchise quarterback? Yeah.
I call him a bridge quarterback. Like, he'll if you have like an amazing roster around him, kind of like with Jimmy G, you can make a push. And if you catch just a good run of games and the team's clicking, you can finish the job. But you pretty much have to put it as far out of his hands as possible, make it a run game and good defense to get to that point, which is what everybody does with Jimmy G. But when you draft Justin Jefferson and you had Stephon Diggs before, it's hard to take the ball out of their hands because you're either going to hear about it from them and the fans, or they're just going to be pissed and leave because you just lost a down at receiver for not using them.
I will say that I think Kirk is a little bit more physically talented than Jimmy G is. He can throw the long ball. Jimmy G cannot really throw the long ball at all. So I will say that, but that's close. That's close.
Decision making probably slightly more for Jimmy G.
Both those guys come to mind right away when I think of quarterbacks that you can win with, but not win because of, you know.
Yeah. Like, if your quarterback goes down with an injury, you're calling the trade for a guy like that. If you thought you had a chance that year.
So, how about, okay, last one. Kirk Cousins or Matthew Stafford before this past season?
I'm thinking Stafford all. He still showed flashes. He was dragging a literal carcass in Detroit.
That's definitely true.
He literally broke his collarbone and then finished the game and had a game-winning touchdown. He had a lot of boneheaded mistakes, but he had to force the action because there was no other action.
Very true. That's fair enough. Fair enough. But I think that's kind of close, though. Because, like, I mean, in hindsight, it's easy to say Stafford, but
no one was really considering Stafford that elite quarterback. I just saw the flashes and trusted in him.
Exactly. And he can do things with the football, and we've seen now. He can do things with the football that other quarterbacks just can't physically do. Only that elite company of quarterbacks can do. You know, so Kirk Cousins, not one of those guys.
He's just got that extra juice.
Yeah. But anyway, okay. So they bring in Kevin O'Connell, former quarterback, to be their new head coach. They also bring in defensive tackle Harrison Phillips. Like we mentioned earlier with the Packers, they nab outside linebackers Darius Smith from Green Bay, bring him in on the defense, much needed help. They also bring in cornerback Andrew Booth out of Clemson, highly regarded prospect. Nice addition for them. It was surprising that they didn't go corner in the first round, but they obviously ended up going corner in the second, and
they were picking pretty
exactly.
Close
together. I thought like there was like a big debate, like everybody. Obviously, they were picking close together, and now it's easy to say. But like at the time, it was like, whoa, like why do you need a safety? Whoa, but yeah. So Andrew Booth out of Clemson, they bring him in, and they also bring in safety Lewis Cine out of Georgia with that first round pick. So on the departure side, they say goodbye to longtime head coach Mike Zimmer. Let's clap it up for Mike Zimmer real quick. Hell of a career, dude.
Tyler was praising Jesus the day they fired him. He had been calling for it since week one.
But, like, dude, got to think back. Like, Mike Zimmer's been with the Vikings forever, dude. Like, I mean, ever since we started, or ever since really I started getting into football, Mike Zimmer has been the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, you think back to, like, geez, what was it? Jake Locker was in Tennessee. Who's the guy who was in Ponder? Christian Ponder.
Bradford,
yeah, I know. I know. You got to think back, way back to guys like Christian Ponder. Like, that's how long Mike Zimmer has been around, and he was around before that. I mean, he was the head coach, prime Adrian Peterson. You know, the Adrian Peterson that's going to go in the Hall of Fame. That's the running back that Mike Zimmer was coaching, you know, in his prime. So let's clap it up for Mike Zimmer. You know, hell of a career. But he'll be
a defensive coordinator now.
What's that quote from SpongeBob? It's like, how many times have we got to teach you this lesson, old man? Like, how many?
That was any team looking at the Vikings.
Yeah, exactly. How many times have we got to teach you this lesson, old man? It's not an old man's league anymore, Zim. Sorry about it. But, yeah, hell of a career. Good shit. So, all right. Also, on the departure side, they say goodbye to tight end Tyler Conklin, not to too bad there. Defensive tackle Michael Pierce also headed out of town. He's now in Baltimore. Linebacker Anthony Barr, but they brought in Zadarius Smith kind of to replace that. Anthony Barr, he played mostly on the outside, if I remember correctly, but he's a big fella, so he's kind of moved interior. But they also say goodbye to safety Xavier Woods as well. But yeah, they did. I don't know if you want to consider this, and there was debates that Kirk might get traded this offseason, possibly. I mean, at some point during this offseason, it was debate whether everybody was going to get traded, So
there's like 5 quarterbacks off the table
right,
for trade.
Exactly. There was just so much negativity surrounding Kirk for a while, like with Amari, or was it Amari or CD calling Dak the Black Kirk Cousins. It's like that came out, and I was like, oh my god! Like we can't even call him Kirk Cousins. Like we got to reduce it to like the Black Kirk. Like Kirk Cousins is so bad that like we have to distinguish. Like it's absolutely fucking crazy. But yeah. So looking at this list, man, what pops out to you? Favorite moves, least favorite moves.
I liked what they did in the draft. I just didn't like how they did it because, like I said, they made that trade with the Lions so they could get 32 and 34. They let them jump up to 12 for like nothing. Granted, a first and very early second, pretty much a first at that point. But they jumped up 20 spots to get Jameson Williams, who could very easily torture them for years. That was a dumb trade. I really like Lucine. I think he might end up being regarded higher than Kyle Hamilton just in coverage because I think the Ravens are going to need up front playing more linebacker, and he's going to get shadowed as a safety. But I really like what they did overall. O'Connell should bring a little bit of juice that Zimmer didn't have. Zimmer had no idea what the hell clock management was in the NFL, apparently. But only move that I wasn't huge on might have been Andrew Booth. Like, he has the upside there, but he's gone through 2 surgeries this offseason. One of them was just a core muscle thing for a hernia, but it's followed him his entire time through college. But he's definitely got the ceiling there to be a productive corner when they needed corners.
At the end of the first round, when they took Scene, do you think they could have possibly taken a cornerback that you would have liked more than Andrew Booth?
No, a lot of the top level talent was kind of already gone. Yeah, at that point you're just fighting for the 5th year, and I think Lewis Cine you're gonna want before you have to pay him out. I mean, Booth could be a solid starter, but I don't think he'd be the same value. Like you're not saving as much money by using that 5th year on him as you would for a guy like Lewis
exactly.
Cine.
And the argument that I'll make for the Vikings and in favor of trading down like that, I mean, at value, who are you going to get? Like, we knew that they needed to bolster the secondary. Outside of the guys like Singletary, Sauce, and Kyle Hamilton, you weren't going to...
There was a lot of solid guys, but not a lot of guys you're willing to throw out there against ones
right,
and
exactly.
twos on
So,
teams yet.
You were going to get mostly the same guy. Like, the same guys that, like, at the end of the first... that you could have gotten at 12 if you were looking to address your secondary unit. So, I liked the move, I liked it for the value. Like, you weren't going to get any...
It was with a division rival. Like, if it was blank slate, you tell me it was like they traded with the Rams or something.
I think it's just the situation.
Okay. Not horrible. You get 2 really solid picks and then give up a later pick.
I think it's just like the situation, like situationally based. Like you said, off the top of your head, if like you say that right now this trade happens next year, it's like, oh, you're fucking crazy. But like looking at the draft board, they knew that they weren't interested really in any of those guys that were going to go that high. So you might as well trade back.
I guess they could have made like a monster trio with Jameson, Dillon, and Justin Jefferson, but they knew what they needed to do.
That would have been Bengals 2.0 out there, but Bengals have a better secondary. So, but yeah. All right. As far as moves that pop out to me, huge fan of Zadarius Smith. I've always been a big fan of Zadarius Smith, former Cat. So I mentioned on the podcast last week, I'm not saying he a cat because that's already a coined term for the Terps. Yeah, exactly. So he is a cat. He was at one time a Wildcat at the University of Kentucky. That's what I'll say. But yeah. But like they say goodbye. Jeez. I don't know how to keep going after that. All right. But Anthony Barr, like, Zadarius Smith comes in to replace Anthony Barr's production, and Zadarius Smith is a better football player now than Anthony Barr. It's not really close, you know. Zadarius Smith is still playing at a Pro Bowl type level, an All-Pro type level, and Anthony Barr has never really played at that level, unless.
I think he's made a few Pro Bowls. Like, he's definitely a better tiered linebacker, but I don't think it's been like perennial Pro Bowl or like sign him to this ridiculous.
I thought he was a first rounder out of UCLA. Like, I always just thought he was like above average. Like, oh yeah.
Him and Kendricks together kind of made up for each other.
Exactly. But we bring in Zadarius Smith now to complement Kendricks, right? So gotta love to see that. And then you bolster the secondary. Love to see that. I mean, we talked a lot about Andrew Booth coming into the process. You know, he's athletic, probably arguably the most athletic corner outside of Derek Stingley that was in this draft. So I like that. And I'm a huge fan of seeing too. He was kind of like this time last year, like he was being mocked like top 10 pick, you know, but fell as the season went on. So nice value pick there.
I don't know why. He had like one of the highest PFF grades for his position in college. Granted, they don't do every school; they just do like a few Power Fives, I think. Right. But still ridiculous.
But yeah, I'd love to see that. And then I'm a huge fan of the Kevin O'Connell signing as far as head coach. I think that's probably top 5 for me, top 4 even maybe from this past hiring cycle. I would put Josh McDaniels, Kevin O'Connell, in no particular order. Mike McDaniel. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
Mike McDaniel,
right off the bat.
Josh McDaniels, Kevin O'Connell. And then who am I? Kind of other hires am I forgetting? No.
Lovie Smith, Todd Bowles.
Like I feel like those 3 are like.
Dennis Allen promotion. There's a lot of hiring.
And I think Dayball. Yeah.
Dayball.
For sure, Dayball. Probably you could put him above O'Connell. But it's close. I'm a huge fan of the O'Connell signing. So looking at all this right here, what are we thinking as far as an offseason grade, man? I'll throw it to you.
I'm leaning towards. I'm gonna go B+. I don't think it's quite an A because they didn't have that superstar splash, but I think it was good. They gained more than they lost for sure. And they needed the fresh blood at coach because Zimmer had just kind of flatlined. Everybody's figuring him out, knows what he does. And they are starting to, Harrison Smith not getting younger. I think Lewis Sean's supposed to step in, learn under him, and then become this next top 5 safety, learning under his tutelage. I think Booth could have been a better corner if they just stayed put, but then they wouldn't get seen too. So I really like what they did this offseason. Smith should help make a splash and pass rush him and Griffin should be good.
If he can manage.
And they should be able to
not have it. And I do not mean to make fun of mental health here, but if he can manage not to have a schizophrenic episode at his house, he will be a good football player this year. If he can manage not to like throw his gun around his house, like he should be okay.
Yeah. Keep his head on tight and he'll be fine.
You just tell people with schizophrenia, hey man, just keep your head on tight. Keep your head on. Just make sure. Yeah.
Take your medicine.
Yeah. But I'll go ahead and slap a B+ on this, man. I'm really feeling the Vikings this year. I love obviously new regime with Kevin O'Connell there, and you look at this team on paper, and you've looked at this team on paper the past couple years. Like, if the Packers weren't in this division, they would be pretty much easily winning this division every season. And
I think the only thing they're really missing is like offensive line, which is they're not bad. It's just not
Right.
that
And
next level
you've
back.
got Dalvin Cook in the backfield, top 5 running back in the league, if not top 3. Then you've got Justin Jefferson, probably top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. Adam Thielen, obviously on the backside, but a lot of teams would really love to have Adam Thielen as their number 2 option. Then you got KJ Osborne coming up. He showed flashes last year. And then you've got, like,
I mean, Irv Smith's taking
Right.
over now at tight end. Maybe he won't be the next O.J. Howard. He'll actually materialize in the
O.J. Howard
NFL.
was such a Eagles fan for such a long time. But yeah, like,
So was I, man. So I think everybody was high on him, and then he just proceeded to let everybody down.
but yeah, I really feel like they're flipping a new page for the Vikings. I think, Jacob just hit us with his annual Go Ravens comment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You missed that episode. Just kidding. You were on the Ravens episode, but that episode was a little while back. But we might just have to run a solo Ravens episode just for Jacob. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's a loyal commenter, so gotta respect that.
Invite him on.
But yeah, I love what the Vikings did. I really feel like they're turning a new page. They bolster that secondary that's been much need, and they did bring back Patrick Peterson, right? So he'll be able to coach those guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he got a 1
So
year
he'll be
or
able to
something
coach
like
those
that.
guys up. I really like that. But yeah, good shit for the Vikings side. So let's dive into. Let me look at the over under on the win totals. So we have over under is set at 9 wins. And as far as strength of schedule goes, they have the 20th hardest schedule in the league. So, AKA the 12th easiest schedule in the league. So, what are you thinking, man? Do you think they go over 9 wins? Under 9 wins? What we got? What we feeling?
I think they can get 10 wins pretty easily. This 12th easiest schedule in the league. This team's stacking up pretty well. Kirk's been there. He's got ebbs and flows with everybody on this team by now. I don't think they beat the Packers in the division. I'm sorry, Tyler. I know you wanted us to say that. But I think they can definitely be a wild card team in this NFC and get to at least.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, these past couple of years, it felt like you could have picked the Vikings easily as one of those wild card teams. I mean, it was kind of a shock that they didn't make the playoffs this past year. I mean, they were expected to. So, but now that they've got that new regime in there, I really like it. And this is not the Green Bay Packers of last year. Devonte Adams is not there anymore. They have gotten better on the defensive side, but those guys are rookies. You know, you're going to have to coach them up. You're going to struggle to start the year. And the Vikings have an elite offense, you know. I mean, we're talking about the Bengals all the time and how electric their offense is. I mean, this is probably pretty much on par for the Bengals.
They're just a little bit need a little bit better quarterback play, and then they'd be on par with them.
But Kirk can play really well at times. So, yeah, I like the over, and I do like them as a sneaky. Not even sneaky. They should make the wild card, or it's a disappointment, for sure.
Yeah. Nothing sneaky about it. This team's been present for years. I think the coaching is just kind of holding back. As Tyler would definitely agree when he hears this.
Yeah, I think he's listening to it right now. He's texting. But I do have to take a piss, like my life depends on it. So I'm going to throw us to the we'll be back screen, and we'll be back momentarily. You know, that's what we have it for, so I could take a mad piss break in the middle of the podcast. So I'll take it.
I can bridge us into the next one.
I mean, you can if you want. Up to you, man.
Yeah, I'll lead us off with the Lions talk.
There you go. Take it away.
All righty. So, for our next one, we're moving on to the Detroit Lions, who, with the number 2 overall pick, managed to get Aiden Hutchinson. Fell right into their lap, homegrown talent pretty much. His hometown team could not have gone better for them for the Jags to take Trayvon Walker. Massive ad for them because pass rush was okay at best. And then you look at the next move they did. Jameson Williams, a massive trade for them. We just talked about all the details with the Vikings. But to add another receiver to this team is massive. Amon-Ra St. Brown burst onto the scene last year, and they also picked up DJ Chark. So this team has been scraping for receivers for years. Last year, Tyrell Williams came into their as their number one receiver, and he's not even on an NFL roster at this point. And they were scraping the bottom of the barrel. And to manage to get two guys that can make an impact immediately on this team should do wonders and make people not think Jared Goff is quite as bad as he was. And then yet another sneaky guy, Deshaun Elliott from the Ravens. This is going to be huge for them. They are, I wouldn't say revamping the secondary because they already had Okuda, and they still have kind of have their eggs in that basket. Haven't seen him yet. Last year he was playing okay before the Achilles tear, but I just love what they've been doing. Then they managed to get Malcolm Rodriguez, a sneaky pick later in the draft, just an absolute freak athlete. I think he was like 5'10" and put up 34 reps on the bench press. This is not a big guy, but he is strong. Overall, this team, they're one of my sneakier teams. I'll wait for Kane to come back before I digress into that too bad. And you look at what they lost. They only lost Jalen Reeves-Maybin, who I guarantee 95% of football fans couldn't have picked his name out of a lineup or figured out who he was on the field watching any game. Because, well, one, Lions never on TV. This team, in my opinion, has a chance to make a major leap. And they at least have the foundation going forward with great coaching staff, finally making good choices at managing on this team. They still have to deal with the Jared Goff contract while looking for that next man up. And I think they at least have the foundation to move forward, if not make a leap, because we've seen Jared Goff be a Super Bowl quarterback before. It's not like it's impossible to win with him. He's probably in the same tier as Jimmy G, not quite Kirk probably, but there is a long list of quarterbacks that, like Kane mentioned earlier, you can win with or you can win because of. He's not the because of. He is one of the many quarterbacks that you can win with when you set up the roster right. Probably my favorite thing of the offseason, because I was a massive Jameson Williams stan. I wanted him to go to the Chargers. I knew he wasn't going to make it there because he was finally getting the hype he rightfully deserved. That ACL tear kind of ruined his draft stock. He might have been the number one receiver overall if he had come in healthy. I'm pretty sure he would have been, but the injury's there. And you kind of have that tag as an injury-prone guy. So that's where it goes. And they got that trade up on a massive scale. They move up 20 spots with a division rival for pretty much nothing to get a potential generational talent. Yeah.
Here we go. Sweet.
All right. I got one thing to toss to you. I was talking a little bit about Jared Goff. We're doing the Would You Rather again. And I'm going to toss out the exact same names from the Kirk Cousins debate because I think Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl. You can clearly win with him. It's just
whatever happened, what has happened to Jared Goff? Like, all of a sudden, he went from being, not on the level of the...
He was an MVP candidate.
Yeah, exactly. And, I remember, he was making appearances at, people's, community colleges dressed up, because he was the guy. Yeah, exactly. Because he was the guy at one point. He was, an NFL quarterback, a really fucking good one. And then all of a sudden, he just, for a couple... Yeah, he did have a big contract, and the play towards his end of his career in LA or St. Louis or whatever, but didn't really warrant that kind of money.
He kind of relied on play action so heavily, and when you don't have Todd Gurley handing it off to you, they're not going to bite on it as much. I guess he didn't quite have a true deep threat. Woods and Cooper Kupp, I mean, they have the ability to go deep, but you're not necessarily terrified of them going deep.
And would you... Yeah.
Especially not with
Goff. And we think, it's got to be some, and his decision-making, too, towards the end. I don't think we even really got to see what Jared Goff was as a quarterback in Detroit this past year. It's he barely existed as a quarterback.
I mentioned it, Amon-Ra St. Brown burst onto the scene, but going into the year, Tyrell Williams was their number one receiver. He doesn't have a job right now. They were scraping the bottom of the barrel for anybody with a pulse that has
how they ended up St. Brown though, that was a nice find for them. Like, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, where projections for this year as far as fantasy goes, Amon-Ra. You got any bold predictions to throw out there?
I mean, I'm a dynasty owner of him, so I obviously love him, but I think he's going to get overdrafted still. He'll probably range around like the 12 to 15 points per game with a couple of outbursts, kind of like last year. He's going to get his catches. He can easily be a 5 for 80 guy, like get you that steady 13 in a full point PPR league, but I don't think he's going to have the explosions just because.
But the weapons are starting. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe like one burst out, but if Jameson's there and then Shark's there as well, you got to worry about mouths to feed. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is definitely going to be their safety net receiving option. I don't think there's any.
And then you got Hawk there too, who now he should be starting to come into his full own. You know, like tight ends, obviously they're going to take a few years to figure out how to block and catch passes in the same role. You know, so but I was just looking at Jared Goff's PFF ranking from last year. Here are the only quarterbacks that finished below him. He finished 31. Trevor Lawrence, Taylor Heineke, Zach Wilson, Davis Mills, Sam Darnold, Ben Roethlisberger. Guys ahead of them, notable guys ahead of him: Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Trevor Siemian, Tyler Huntley, Andy Dalton, Tua. Tua's not. Then you start to get guys like Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones sits at 21 on the PFF from last year. Jared Goff sits at 31. That's how much of a difference between, literally Jared Goff didn't exist last year. You can't convince me that. But this year, we haven't, that is not a statement that they have said in Detroit in a very long time, is what you just said. They've got maybe too many mouths to feed. But that's an extremely good thing. You know, that's an extremely good problem for Detroit to have. And
they have a great O-line. They have a great running game. Jared Goff, realistically, shouldn't be anywhere near as bad as he was last year.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
But he's Jared Goff.
He has no excuse. He should be able to lead this team to... There should be a 1,000-yard wide receiver on this team. 100%. You know. So...
All right. So, quarterback debate on the would you rather. Trevor Lawrence versus Jared Goff.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, even I have a table on that. Jimmy G versus Jared Goff.
Jimmy G.
Borderline, same thing. Both have gone.
Gotta go Jimmy G. I think.
Give you about the same time. I think his Jimmy G's contract.
But Jared Goff does not have a friendly contract right now.
Slightly better. Yeah, that's why I'm saying Jimmy G, because it's slightly less than it. Then we got Carson Wentz. I think there's a debate to be had there, but I'm giving Carson the edge just because.
Probably a little biased, but I'm not giving
Matt Ryan.
Thought. I'm putting Carson ahead of Jared Goff. Matt Ryan or Jared Goff? I think that's close, man. I think that's when you start to get close.
I think Jared Goff will have the better year, but I'd rather have
just
Matt
the
Ryan
trust that I can place in a guy like Matt Ryan versus the trust that I can place in a guy like Jared Goff.
Even though he's been one of the worst crunch time quarterbacks over the past few years. And then Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I'm totally on the Baker thought train with you.
I'll throw in Danny Dimes just because. I'm going to throw in Danny Dimes just because you mentioned him being that much higher. And I'm going to take Jared Goff.
I'm going to go Jared Goff too.
Danny Dimes at all. He's got arm talent. He just never.
I'm curious at how old Jared Goff is and how many years he has left on his deal. I'm going to look that up.
He's got to be. Got drafted in 2015.
How many years do you think Jared Goff is the quarterback for the majority of Jameson Williams' career?
Hell no. I was talking about it before. I said they have the foundation to keep shopping for this new quarterback and then just plug him in, and he should be instantly successful because they have all the pieces they need. You got to imagine they're going to be looking in the draft for this because you can't afford to pay another guy because this offensive line's going to run out, your weapons are going to run out. You have to re-sign these guys, and they're going to have that rookie window for quarterbacks. They have to.
So Jared Goff is signed a 4-year, $134 million contract with the Rams. But then he got traded 2 years into that deal to the Lions, just last year, obviously, in the Matthew Stafford trade. He has this year, and once he plays out this year, there's a potential out, but then there's 2 more years after that potential. So they have to make a decision after this coming season whether or not they think he's the guy. So do you think Jared Goff is the guy after this year?
I think they're going to have too good of a draft position to get one of those top guys. That's what's going to worry me, because they're in the NFC. It's kind of weak, and this team, they were competing every game last year. If they just had any receiving breakout early in the year, I think they could have pulled through on some of those games. And losing Jeff Okudah was big, because he started to show some flashes of being solid, and then Achilles, boom, done for the year. No making up for that. Secondary was god-awful after that point. So I think with Dan Campbell, they can manage to find some fire in their souls, because they were pulling through almost every game last year with zero talent. And now this team is infinitely better than
I also love what they did in the draft. I heard Dan Campbell, it came out and said, like, his draft strategy was like, I want dudes who absolutely love the game of football. Like, will die and cut their heads off for the game of football. Something in a Dan Campbell way of saying it. But,
busted.
Right, exactly. And Aiden Hutchinson, obviously one of those guys. Jameson Williams, obviously one of those guys. And then, I forget the linebacker they drafted out of Oklahoma State.
Malcolm Rodriguez. I brought him up. That dude, he put up 34 reps on the bench. He's like 5'10". And he's just pumping out 225.
Because he was playing, they played Notre Dame in the bowl game, and Notre Dame was up like 30 points at half. And Rodriguez absolutely unfazed. Like, he was the captain of that defense. Like, he's got the neck pad, like, classic, like.
Yes, that is how you know they love football, is when you see that old school linebacker neck roll.
Exactly. I was like, this dude's a fucking dog. And he was, like, screaming on the sidelines, and I was like, this man's legit. Like, he's ready to go.
That is a damn
right. And what do you know? They don't allow another point for the entire game, and they come back to win it. So, crazy shit. But, all right. Did we go through the additions and departures for the Lions, obviously?
I did. I mean, the departures was pretty quick and pretty irrelevant. He's not going to be there.
Really quick, I want to ask you, so obviously there was a lot of debate on whether or not Hutchinson should have been the number 1 overall draft pick over a guy like Trayvon Walker. That was the thought process leading into the draft, and then those last couple weeks, Trayvon Walker shot up the board in Jacksonville Jaguar style. But do you think Aiden Hutchinson is going to be a perennial type of player, like a franchise-defining type of defensive player?
I think he's going to be like a lesser version of the Bosa brothers. He's just a great technician, got a good motor when he plays, but I don't see him quite as elite as them. But I think he's going to be a star in the league. He's going to make Pro Bowls and stuff like that. He's a much safer pick than Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker, I wouldn't have minded. I guess it's a good situation being across from Josh Allen, but I would want him next to a more proven edge rusher, so he doesn't attract any double teams. And you can just send him in as that pure athlete and try to win. But Hutch is, in my opinion, there's no way he doesn't outplay what Trayvon Walker's going to on these rookie contracts.
And one more, I'll be the most interesting guy for both of us on this list, and you were looking to draft him. Headed over to LA, but Jameson Williams. So will he be able to play like week 1?
9 months. He got hurt January. He should be right around there. It depends on how cautious they're being, because he is a rookie. You don't want to force him in. You want him to learn the playbook, kind of assimilate, build some chemistry with Goff. I'm not sold on week 1 just because it was January, as opposed to like if he did it in October, or even when John Mechie did it like mid-December. But he'll definitely be in there and playing at some point this season. Just don't just temper your expectations at first because he's got a lot of growing to do in that offense. He'll be good down the road. Maybe kind of like Amon-Ra last year where he comes on in his last.
But you gotta love what the Lions are putting together, especially on offense right now. I mean, you got them.
Yes, that offense. Yeah, 1 week
exactly. And if you can, I mean, that's the goal. You want to build your team like the teams that go quarterback first and then try to build around the quarterback usually don't do that well.
They back themselves into a wall because then you have to pay the quarterback and can't afford to keep the guys that drafted
Like you're going to see that situation unfold with guys like Zach Wilson, Justin Fields. Like these teams were not ready for a quarterback and they started him right away and it sucked. But yeah, I mean Detroit is preparing.
Even Kyler Murray in Arizona, that is living proof right now because he is all but begging for a contract. He's acting like the toddler he is and sitting out until he gets his money.
Little guy. Oh my god, that we had so many Kyler jokes during last year, all just flooding back in the head. Yeah,
it was so easy.
Especially with all the social media shit that he does now. But anyway, would you put Jameson Williams in the same if he had not gotten injured? And I mean, yeah,
he would have been one.
Like one of one in the draft.
He was still almost number one receiver here.
The first wide receiver drafted or the first person drafted?
First receiver, not number one overall. He probably might have edged into the top 5. Nasty. It was a 1-year sample size, but he was just beautiful. He was going against some of the best corners in college, and when you get cooking them. I mean, Sauce was okay against it, but they were just pounding up the gut. There was no need for Jameson Williams.
When you get on the field as an Alabama football player and everybody is clearly labeling you as the X factor in that offense, that's one hell of an accomplishment, my friend. Because, I mean, Alabama, the way it is, you go to Alabama so you can compete against the best players in the world and practice every day, your freshman, sophomore, junior year, and then eventually you came up. Jameson was just dominating the whole receiver room, and it wasn't really even close. You got Mechie, that was pretty close behind. But, I mean, Jameson Williams was that guy, So, I want to ask you, would you put him in the same category as guys like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, premier wide receiver prospects coming out? Would you...
Those are I would put them as 1As, and then the Jameson Williams of the world's 1Bs. He's got the explosion and everything. It's just something a little different because they're a little lankier. They can go up and get the ball a little better than a guy like Jameson. So,
what do you think a good player comp? I think he's better than a guy like Jalen Waddle.
I'd put him just.
Let's play a name game. Waddle. Would you rather with Jameson Williams?
Speedy receiver. I'd want to say just on body shape, kind of closer to Stephon Diggs, but a little thinner and leaner. But more realistic, maybe like a Brandon Cooks, like an earlier years Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, that's a pretty good comp. I'm trying to think of you think he'll end up with a career like AJ Green? Yeah.
Hopefully not fall off. But I could see him as a perennial 1,000-yard receiver.
That's good shit. All right.
It might not happen in these first 2 years because of quarterback play, but he's going to show flashes.
Do you think he steps in, and this is the last Jameson Williams question that I'll ask, but do you think he steps in right away as the one? Because like you said, you got a lot of mouths to feed there, and those guys are also veterans. One of the...
Amon-Ra's going to stay at the one at first because he's in the slot. He's the slot receiver. He's going to be open. And Jameson has to kind of learn how to play those cornerbacks and get assimilated to the NFL in general because he's not going to be able to practice in those mini camps much.
No, for sure. So, all right. Let's dive into the overall. Let's play some overall draft or overall offseason grades on the Detroit Lions. And I'll go ahead and go first. Like the Minnesota Vikings, but almost on a completely different scale because the Vikings have been so bad for so much longer. I think that they're starting to turn a new page. I mean, like you said, and we're really starting to speak it into existence now. They just need a quarterback now. Like, I mean, once you get...
Or they need the Jared Goff of old.
I know.
Even a glimpse of that.
I don't know if they were trying to be conservative. Obviously, they were trying to be conservative. Man, they might as well not had a quarterback last year. Like, they could have done the same thing and been just as good. But, yeah, got to think, like, DeAndre Swift, who is an amazing pass-catching back, not to mention he's an amazing running back in general. Then you've got DJ Chark, still young, like, really solid. Amon-Ra St. Brown came on the scene last year. And then you draft a guy like Jameson Williams, that premier number 1 threat in the future. You gotta love, and then not to mention with the number 2 overall pick, you drafted the guy who should have gone number 1 overall, and that's Aiden Hutchinson, coming back. Yeah, homegrown powder, exactly. So I think Detroit's starting to turn a new page here too. Year 2 of the Dan Campbell regime. Yeah, year 2. And you could tell how much, and we talked about it last year. Like you could tell how much those players wanted to play for Dan Campbell. Like. The only reason that
he literally cried at a Week 5 loss. That man is just emotion, pure fire. Everybody thinks like Mike Vrabel's like this hardo. Dan Campbell is Mike Vrabel. He's more emotional than him, but he's got that hardo football.
The only reason that the Lions won any games last year is because of their head coach Dan Campbell. Like he is that guy. He gets those guys to want to play for something, you know? So year 2 of the Dan Campbell regime, and you're getting your guys too. Like I said, his draft strategy was to draft guys that fucking love the game of football. So you're starting to get your guys in, and on the defensive side of the ball, your guys like Hutchinson and Rodriguez, and you already got Okudah. I know he didn't draft him, but you know, you're starting to, I think you're really, really going to start to see the turn for the Lions this year. Under Dan Campbell. So, yeah, I like it. I'll go ahead and slap, as far as a grade goes, A-. Big fan.
I'm going to slap a solid A on this one. I'm not going to say A+ because they can't be win now right now, but they have every piece to start looking to win now in the future. Just the quarterback away. If they get any glimpse of Goff, this could be a surprising team. Like any glimpse of what he was under McVay.
Exactly. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the Lions do because last time they were good was when Megatron was in a Lions uniform, and that's been a very long time. So, all right. So
still only one playoff win in franchise history, and they've been there since the start. Well, the Super Bowl era,
guys like fucking Barry Sanders played for this team at one point. Like, good lord. Fucking how far they've fallen. But, okay. Well, they haven't really fallen because they just always have been terrible. Right, exactly. But, okay. The over-under is sitting at 6.5 wins at MGM right now. And then as far as strength of schedule goes, they have the 28th hardest schedule in football, a.k.a. the 5th easiest schedule in football. So that's pretty nice. That's pretty sweet. They're the winning percentage on average for their teams that they're playing this year, 0.467. So in case you guys want that little snippet. But yeah, they have the 5th easiest schedule going into this year. Over under sitting at 6.5. I think they'll win 6 games. I think they'll win 6 games, and you'll finally start to see the glimpses of the Dan Campbell era coming to fruition here in his second year. But obviously, still a lot of work to do. You need to coach all these guys up. Like, I mean, this core that they got now cooking up. I mean, it's going to be great in a couple years. But
it's going to be there for years to come too, especially if they get a rookie after this. They get that rookie quarterback contract, they can just re-sign all those big names that they got.
But I mean, 5th easiest schedule in all of football, but it is still the Lions. So I'll go 6 wins. I'll go the under on 6.5. But I do really like this Lions team and what they did this year, or in this offseason. So what you got?
I'm gonna come in hot here. Everybody's been talking about the Jets being the next Bengals. I don't think an AFC team can be the next Bengals, except if you're considering last place in the division, the first being the Ravens, considering they had no one on their opening day roster there by the end of the year. I think the Lions can be one of these worst to first teams. Now, unfortunately, they're against the Packers, but I think this team, they just need Jared Goff to not suck, and they can make a playoff push. They are a really strong team. They can compete with the Vikings. They can at least split with them, if not find some sort of fire under that Dan Campbell regime and maybe even sweep them. They can manage to snag a game from the Packers, and I think there's no reason they should not sweep the Bears. And then, like you said, they're facing all the last place division finishers in the NFC. They should be able to win games, and I just think they're going to get over. I think they can get to that 9-10 win thing, maybe sneak into the wild card. I love this team. I love what they're doing. And then late Jameson Williams emerging onto the scene gives them that little push they need for the playoffs.
I like that. I like that line of thinking. You're starting to talk me into it, man. I mean,
it's hard not to like Dan Campbell in this team. And everybody on this podcast loves Jameson Williams, so we're all going to have an affinity for that.
But, like Dan Campbell, he's going into year 2 of his regime. Kevin O'Connell, this is his first year, so you can't necessarily judge Kevin O'Connell, what he does, based on the.
There'll be some growing pains.
100%. There is going to be growing pains there. And if the Vikings, they should have shown up to play last year, but they didn't. They have more likelihood of not showing up to play this year than they did last year because of the new coach. So I think the Lions, we mentioned the Vikings. They should be taking the wild card spot, but if the Vikings don't come to play this year, if Kirk does not come to play this year, then the Lions are taking that wild card spot. So, yeah.
Yeah. They have the better trenches, in my opinion, because Vikings don't have a good O-line, and the defensive line, they're solid, but they leave you wanting more.
Yeah, and they get to build on these the beginnings. That's the crazy part. Like they got the right core. They just need to bring in the right guys to surround those guys. So it'll be fun to watch over these next couple of years, but it'll take a couple of years to get rolling. So, but yeah, sneaky wildcard team for sure. I like that state of mind for the Lions this year, and I'm sure any Lions fans listening are absolutely ecstatic at hearing that. So, hopefully we made some Detroit fans happy today. So, all right, let's move on to the final team that we have on our NFC North teams, and that is the Dismal Chicago Bears, dude. Holy shit. They had a terrible offseason. I don't even have to read off I haven't even taken a look at the names, and I know that they...
Oh, we need to add Akeem Hicks to the departures, too. Because he signed after the graphic was made.
Yeah.
With the ball.
Fucking crazy, dude. It's absolutely crazy. Like, off the top of my head, they easily had the worst offseason. Do you disagree? In the NFL.
Yeah,
in the NFL.
They
like,
didn't even approach the offense in a way they needed to.
Yeah.
This is horrible. You could not.
In the entire NFL. Like, I'm not just saying this division. Like, they had probably the worst offseason in the entire NFL. Can you think of other guys? Like, sure, maybe other teams didn't move, but.
No. Jaden made us I already finished my preseason power rankings for everything. For their offense, I put them at the worst. And for their defense, I put them at 4th worst. There was nothing I liked about them except Justin Fields. They did okay in the draft, I guess, but they didn't approach things to protect or give Justin Fields what he needs.
Exactly. We were just talking about it with the Lions. Like, they're setting themselves up. They're building the pieces around the quarterback. Chicago took the other way, the other approach, and drafted their quarterback first.
See if this quarterback is worth anything.
Right, exactly. And then we'll figure it out. And then we'll hire a defensive-minded head coach to coach up this guy. It's like, what are we doing, man? But
they basically got Matt Nagy again. I was so
100%.
Like they're so reluctant to build around Justin Fields for some reason. Why trade up to the number 10 pick to get him if you're not going to put in
maybe not the same level of electricity, maybe, but maybe yes. You could run the Kyler Murray offense that Kingsbury runs with Justin Fields. It'd be great, you know? But you won't be able to do that with Matt Eberflus. So, Adroit Talk Show hits us with a great podcast, fellas. Keep putting out content. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Yeah, appreciate the love.
Sorry, we kind of crapped on Russell Wilson last episode.
It is what it is. Gotta do our jobs, you know? It is what it is. Gotta stay.
It's a shame that I'm like the new Russ hater, and I was like the most positive one on him, and I wasn't on the podcast to like defend him at all. It just turned into a bashing of Russell Wilson.
Right. I mean, we were about to hand him the what was the award that we did at the end of the live show? The Clown of the Year. Didn't we give him the Clown of the Year?
Yes.
Yeah, because
I think we might have.
Yeah.
Rehabilitation.
Because when he was injured, he was walking out there in the captain circle in his sweats to help like flip the coin. It's like, what are you doing, bro? Please, like this is painful. But anyway, all right, let's dive into this absolutely horrid Chicago Bears offseason. On the addition side, they bring in new head coach Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator with the Colts for a while. Not a fan. Absolutely not a fan. Nothing that I've seen. Right. Like I get it. Like if you're going off the mentality, like, oh, like we're the Chicago Bears, we want to return it back to like Bears football. That doesn't exist anymore, guys. Like that kind of football doesn't happen anymore. Like no.
You don't draft a Justin Fields who's a flashy quarterback.
And that shows you the change of regime. You know, like literally this team last year was thinking about their offense, but now they want to return back to like the Bears defensive prominence, but that doesn't happen anymore. Why wouldn't you just bring in Lovie Smith again if you were going to do that? Like it doesn't make any sense to me. You have a premier quarterback prospect sitting in your lap, begging to be developed, and I don't know, last year he doesn't throw to Allen Robinson at all because Matt Nagy is incompetent. And it's going to be, I mean, he has nobody to throw to now. So, I don't know.
I've got Darnell, who is by far and away their number one, and then nobody that should even be getting considerable reps.
On the addition side as well, hater of the, would you venture to say that Eberflus might be the worst hire of the offseason as far as head coaching vacancies go?
Yeah, he'd be my worst. Maybe like Lovie Smith might be worse just because he is another bridge head coach for the Texans, just another scapegoat for them. But if you're looking to build and start a team in fresh, why would you sign him? We were saying the same thing about Sirianni last year, so maybe that Frank Reich tree has something to it, and he's going to be better than expected, but
Frank Reich fucking lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the last week, regular season last year. I'm a huge fan of Frank Reich, but jeez, maybe that coaching tree has something, maybe.
I mean, he wasn't the one fumbling and turning it over himself, but he could have done better to play
throughout the year. But anyway, Matt Eberflus, the new head coach in Chicago, and that stinks. Wide receiver Velus Jones.
Interesting fact about him. He's 25. Juju Smith-Schuster is younger than him, and he's played 4 years in the NFL. And he is younger than this receiver who was projected as a fifth rounder and went in second.
Well, like we've mentioned with so many guys, like there was that run on wide receivers. Everybody was so afraid that their guy was going to go. Where did he go to college? And he stinks.
Apparently, Fields handpicked him. He watched his tape and handpicked him. So I can't shit on the GMs.
Bro, you're asking your fucking rookie quarterback.
Let Justin Fields.
Like you're asking your rookie quarterback. Like I mean, I guess that's good, you know. But what does Justin Fields know about what kind of NFL wide receiver or what kind of wide receiver is going to translate well to the NFL? Like he hasn't seen a good wide receiver on the same football field as him. Allen Robinson.
He had Allen Robinson and Mooney last year. Mooney is a very solid receiver. I'll give him that, but it's not a number one receiver.
He's a very nice number two. But okay. But they bring in Velus Jones from Tennessee in the draft. They also bring in wide receiver Byron Pringle, who's not listed on the graphic, but they brought him in from the Chiefs. Their 5th or 6th option last year. He became at one point a trusted target for Patrick Mahomes when he was really struggling.
He had better hands than Cole, and I think that got him playing time. Same players as Cole, just catches them better.
But yeah, they also bring in Byron Pringle, trusty target, I guess, but not anywhere near talent. I wouldn't call him talented. Like, I wouldn't even put it that way. Like, compared to guys in the, obviously he's fucking good at football. He's in the NFL, but like, he's a wide receiver. He's a warm-bodied wide receiver. That's about all you can say for Byron Pringle. But and who happened to have Patrick motherfucking Mahomes as a quarterback. So that probably made Byron Pringle look pretty fucking good. But then you move on to Eberflus and Justin Fields, and that's going to be rough. But also on the addition side, they bring in Kyler Gordon, cornerback out of Washington. One of the higher-rated cornerback prospects from the draft. And they also bring in safety Jaquan Brisker from Penn State. So he was projected possibly to go in the first round, but ends up... Did he? No, he ended up falling out of the first round because the Bears didn't have...
He was a second round.
Right.
They got Gordon and him in the second.
That's pretty solid for value, you know?
Yeah, I like both of them. I can complain about them, but if you're not the Chicago Bears and you get both of those guys in the second, I'm saying you killed your first 2 picks of the draft. But unfortunately, they have no offensive line and no receivers.
Yeah, tends to be an issue for a young up-and-coming quarterback. But on the departure side, Matt Nagy, see you later. I'm not giving you any claps, dude. You barely had a career. So he's now the quarterback coach in KC, which is bizarre. It's wild, but okay. Congrats, Matt Nagy, for finding another job in football. Didn't think that was going to happen. But yeah, man, hey, he's cheating the system. Good shit. Also on the departure side, wide receiver Allen Robinson. That's a huge departure. You wouldn't know it from watching any of the games last year because they didn't seem to want to throw him the ball at all. I
don't think he wanted to be there either. He adamantly said he did not want to play on the franchise tag.
He came out like halfway through the season and he was like, I'm trying to help. I've just kind of realized my role this year is like helping out the young quarterback figure out some stuff. But like, you're not throwing him the ball. What are you figuring out? Like, if you aren't throwing the, obviously what he's telling him, he's not listening to because otherwise you'd be getting the ball more often. But like last year, Allen Robinson, top 10, top 12 wide receiver in the NFL. Now, where are we putting him?
He's probably out like top 25, maybe top 30 for sure, but he's struggling for the top 25 because he put up an absolute
Allen Robinson. So those unfamiliar, Allen Robinson now plays with the Rams alongside Cooper Kupp. But Allen Robinson or a guy like Michael Thomas. It's close. Both guys that fell out of promise.
I worry so much about Thomas's ankle at this point.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Allen Robinson or a guy like Bobby Trees.
I'm giving it Robinson. Not by an insane amount, but enough because he's bigger bodied and he's made up.
Allen Robinson or Adam Thielen.
Giving a slight edge to Robinson. I mean, if we're talking about top tier receivers, are we talking about the top 3 guy, Chase Claypool? Taking A-Rob or him?
Okay, well, Claypool, obviously we already talked about the Steelers, so we won't get a chance to go back and... I mean, so Chase Claypool, just 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, 2 days ago, he came out on the I Am Athlete podcast and said that he first said that he was a top 5 wide receiver, and then Brandon Marshall was like, nah, bro, you're a top 3. And he was like, I bet I'm a top 3 wide receiver in the league. And it's like, I appreciate that mentality, 100%. Like, I mean, if you're in the NFL, you have to have that mentality, And I think
especially at receiver.
Right.
You have to
And
think you're
I
that
think
guy.
same thing with Juju. Like, a little less with Juju. I think Claypool has a little bit more potential at this point. But he was just at the mercy or at the will of Ben Roethlisberger. Like, yeah, he just
Quarterback. Your lowest quarterback you
Right.
named on that PFF ranking.
Yeah,
That's who
exactly.
he
The
has
absolute bottom floor quarterback of the PFF rankings from last year.
we had 5'10" Asante Samuel guarding Claypool, and they were throwing jump balls the whole game, and Ben was still underthrowing them, and 5'10" Asante Samuel was going like
Yeah,
50.
but when Claypool, like, if he's getting a ball that's on target, he's mossing that shit like he proved it his rookie year. You know, so
Yeah.
I think that Claypool definitely has the potential to be one of the guys in the NFL. But it's not right now. Sorry.
I don't think he'll be a top
Yeah,
3 at any point. He might make his way into like
5.
top. I'll say top 20 because I think he's too much of a head case in his own to really go to that top tier. Nobody's gonna want to force the action to him when you got to worry about him doing a move the chain sign when the clock's still running and
Or
grind time.
TikToks or whatever. Dude, did you see some of Juju's new TikToks?
I have.
He
I thought he
did,
was gonna
and
get
he's
off.
been off of it for the most part. But I saw one the other day. He was in full uniform, and in his new Chiefs uniform, and he was like pointing, like doing a whole dance, like pointing. Like I was like, dude, bad look, bro, bad look.
Yeah, Mahomes gonna
I
be
know.
calling him up any day
Facts,
now.
but yeah, so Allen Robinson no longer a Chicago Bear. He's now with the Rams, so hopefully he can repeat some of the success that OBJ found last year after he left his very unfavorable destination in Cleveland and moved over to LA. So Allen Robinson looking for similar success over there, but he's no longer a Chicago Bear. Their guard James Daniels also headed out of town, and of course, outside linebacker Khalil Mack is no longer with the Chicago Bears. So I'll go ahead and go first, just because like this is one of my more passionate like teams that I want to break down, just because it's so fucking bad. Like, oh my god, like what they gave up definitely should have gotten more for Khalil Mack. Like, what'd they get? 5th rounder?
They got a second and a 6th. And then what they did was they gave us back the 6th for 2 7th rounders.
Like, bro.
They basically got nothing.
And then they ate the
rounder.
contract, didn't they?
No, they ate the rest. They had a signing bonus left. Signing bonus, the team that signed them has.
So,
to
I
pay
mean,
that off.
if you start...
I mean, we realistically could have just had his guaranteed money out of the way this year and then cut him with no financial stuff, but we restructured to...
Looking back on this Khalil Mack trade, though, like, kind of looking at it from 5,000 feet now, back when Chicago traded for him out of Vegas, or back when they were Oakland still. So much, dude. Like, I would be interested to look back and see exactly what the return is now, considering all those draft picks have been drafted now.
Oh, the Raiders blew it. The Raiders were blowing every last one.
Of course, in classic Raider fashion. But dude, they gave up, like, you look at it on, like, a face value, like, oh my god. And then Khalil Mack just disappeared in Chicago. Like,
he didn't disappear. He just dealt with injuries. That first year when he had Staley working on the line with him, he was a menace. He was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And last year he had like 6 forced fumbles in the 8 games he played or whatever it was. It's just, he couldn't stay healthy. That cold weather's not good for his joints. He's got to go to that warm weather in LA.
But like, I remember he had only had 2, I believe it might have only been 1 double-digit sack seasons with the Bears.
Yeah, 2. But he also was dealing with injuries. He had good pressure rates and stuff like that still. It's just he wouldn't finish in the
mean, it is fucking Khalil Mack, so yeah.
You get double
exactly. It is fucking Khalil Mack, so respect there. But looking back on it and just organizationally, what you gave up for Khalil Mack, it's a huge loss now looking back on it. And
still have that signing bonuses.
You're cleaning the slate, like I get it, like you're clearing the books of your old contracts, you're starting fresh with the new regime and everything, but terrible start. Eberflus fucking sucks. Like, I mean, who knows? He might be a great head coach. Just I'm not feeling too great about this one. Like, not feeling too great about this one. And like, why would you go to full clean slate when you've got year 2 of Justin Fields coming up? Like, you want to go full bore clean slate now when your rookie quarterback's year 2 in? Like, you should not be wiping the table clean right now. You know? Like,
what I think their mentality is, though, is we want to build up the defense because it's hard to truly build a good defense. They got rid of Mack, got some picks out of it. They got Gordon and Brisker, and they still have Goldman, Jalen Johnson, and Roquan Smith. So they have good pieces on defense. Defensive line's kind of rough. And then they want to see if they can continue with the Justin Fields project, I think, because it's not this current regime that drafted him. So they're giving him absolutely fucking nothing and seeing if he can create with it and then decide whether they
luck.
Go forward.
Go out there, kill it out there, kid. Like, it's like, what the?
They are literally going to kill him
exactly.
out there.
It's
That's what they're doing.
Appalling to me. Appalling. But I think that Justin Fields, I mean, looking back on that draft class now, do you think Justin Fields will be the least successful quarterback from those first-round quarterbacks? So Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence.
I think so, because I don't think he's ever going to get a fair shot. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has bad receivers too, but he's also got a much better offensive line. It's not amazing, but they got rid of their one competent offensive lineman this offseason. They just let him go for a really cheap deal to Pittsburgh and said, screw it. Justin Fields can run. He can get away from it. Let's see what he's got.
This is a terrible game plan, especially Toledo.
If they don't burn him out by year 3,
I mean,
a miracle.
Maybe that's part of the reason why they drafted Justin Fields in the first place. Because you think back, like, the thing that...
They traded up for him, too. Like, they're going to get rid of him after year 2 because they didn't want the previous regime's quarterback after they gave up capital to move off.
And maybe the reason that they took him is because, like, and obviously isn't the same regime that drafted Justin Fields, but, like, they took him so that, because they knew he was going to take a fucking beating. And, like, what I think of when I think of Justin Fields immediately is I think when he took that shot in the in the semifinal game. Yeah, exactly. And just kept playing like a dog.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they saw that and they were like, oh, that's our guy. He's not going to become a vegetable after we just let him get slammed for 2 years. Like,
or it's kind of like the Panthers thing when they were talking about going up and getting Kenny Pickett at 6. Like, they're just trying to save their ass and they're dropping back by taking the quarterback. And then they didn't even start him off the bat.
I would love to see. I would love to see. I'm going to do a little stat dive after the podcast because I would love to see the success rate for quarterbacks who were drafted by a previous regime to try and save their jobs and then move on to another head coach the next year. I would love to see how successful those guys actually are as far as first-round quarterbacks go because I can't imagine it's too great.
I can think of one hit. Herbert. Baker's looking a little rough right now. Who else do we have? Two. I had 2 years of Flores. Well, I guess you can kind of count that, and we'll see going forward on him. But off the top of my head, the only one that really worked was Herbert. Wait, Cliff drafted Murray. Ooh.
I know exactly. I'm going to dive into it after this, and next podcast I'll share that info public. But all right. Because I'm gonna have to dive into that because I don't know where the hell you would find a stat like that. But all right, let's dive into our off-season grades for the Bears, and I'll go ahead and make this short and sweet. I will go ahead and okay. I'll go ahead and go D+ because if their plan is like, hey, we want to reinstill the defense, which is a terrible plan. But if that is their plan, they're doing it, I guess, the right way-ish. You bring in Eberflus, defensive-minded head coach, not smart to do. Then you bring in 2 guys at good value in the draft with Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. But still giving it a D+ because overall it just fucking stinks. So D+ is how nice I'm going to be.
I'm not going to be as nice. I'm going to say D because I do like Gordon and Brisker as prospects, but those are the only picks I like. They got Felix Jones Jr. for drastic overdraft, and then they got nothing worthwhile in the 6th and 7th round. They had like 11 picks, and 7 of them were in those last 2 rounds. You're not going to get much value out of that. You're getting special teamers and then one guy who can start most of the time in that situation. They're just going about this horribly. They're throwing Justin Fields into the fire. I understand it was the previous regime, but you just lost your first-round pick this year because they moved up for him, and he has talent. He could easily be the best quarterback in Bears history by just throwing for like 25 touchdowns and 3,500 yards. It's that easy. He's already your best quarterback ever, and they're just going to get him murdered. Darnell Mooney is your number 1 receiver. He's solid. But then after that, you have Felix Jones Jr. and Byron Pringle, who you are reluctant to even have as a 5th receiver on a team. It's ugly. And the offensive line got worse from being like a bottom 5 offensive line.
Considering that this was not we've mentioned it 100 times. Considering that this was not the crew that drafted Justin Fields, how likely do you think it is that, let's say the Bears really suck this year, which I think that's pretty fair to say. Let's say they really suck and they end up with a top 2 draft pick this year. Or next year. Do you think they take a guy like C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young?
I think they go, because I think Fields will still show flashes. I think Will Anderson's going to be the guy, because that defensive line still isn't very good, and he's still a generational prospect. Looking at it right now, he's the guy.
And if you're going defense, then... Right, plus exactly. Yeah, like if they're going all in on the defense, which, again, that does not work anymore. Good luck, but that's not going to work. I mean, I don't know. Good luck, though, guys. Yeah, you can try. But yeah.
There's a reason why this team hadn't been great in a long time, because they're so stuck in their old ways.
You're going to bring in a guy like Will Anderson next year. That makes sense, for sure. But I definitely think that they have a solid chance to end up with the top 3 draft pick next year.
Yeah, I mean, they're rivaling people like the Houston Texans for this top pick. Houston Texans and Seahawks, they're all going to be duking it out. Falcons, too. That's like a clear bottom 4 between them.
So let's hop into the over-unders without further ado, or the over-under on the win total. As far as strength of schedule goes, they are tied for the 24th hardest schedule in the football league this year, but that means that they are tied for the 7th easiest schedule, obviously. But, yeah, because that NFC fucking stinks. But yeah, as far as their over-under on the win total, they are sitting at 6.5 projected wins. I know.
How the fuck are they projected the same as the Lions? That is just tragedy.
Go ahead and speak for us both, Mitch.
I'm hammering this under. I am running to the casino and sports books to get this in. This team's gonna fucking suck. I mean, they get gritty wins. They did it last year, but they're not gonna get 7 of them.
Absolutely not. And do you think Justin Fields makes it through an entire year this year before getting injured?
He'll get like an ankle sprain or hamstring pulled or something. He's not gonna play the full 17. I mean, 6.5. For the over-under, that's like free money if you bet the under.
They do have like.
Team sucks.
I will give them a credit because I don't want to spend this whole time just absolutely taking a shit on the Chicago Bears.
They have a good foundation for defense, minus the defensive line. Like I'm fine with.
We also forgot to mention Akeem Hicks also headed out of town. Huge.
Yeah, another
loss for them.
They got Justin Jones to replace him. From the Chargers. He's okay at best. Like, he's a starter, but hardly that.
But it's going to look rough for the Chicago Bears. Oh, well, anyway, so the good things that I'll say, I think David Montgomery's going to have a solid career. I think he showed really good things at the end because a lot of people were starting to lose faith in Monty. And towards the end of the year last year, he really started to pick it up. Was a nice option in fantasy towards the end of the year too. Darnell Mooney, I think he'll have a good year. I don't think he'll break 1,000 yards though, because I don't think this offense is going to cook.
Would you take Darnell Mooney over Chase Claypool?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah. Claypool's leaps and bounds above a Darnell Mooney, in my opinion.
I don't know about leaps and bounds, but he's got a lot more tools in it.
But Chase Claypool. That's a good one though. All right, let's move on from the Bears. Finally, I didn't want to do that. That was so bad. Yeah, it made me sick to my stomach.
I know you were probably like thinking F.
Yeah,
but you wanted to be nice because we just.
I know exactly because like I have a couple of Bears fans that go to Kentucky and they listen to the podcast. So, like, I don't want to spend the entire 10, 15 minutes just taking a shit on everything in their future. So.
You guys have Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker, Roquan Smith. You have.
That's another thing, though. Like, you mentioned Roquan, like, and this is the last thing we'll say about the Bears, but, like, that's a little bit of a project still ongoing, too. Like, because Roquan can.
He's kind of under.
Right. He was supposed to be the next. Yeah, he was supposed to be the next like huge middle linebacker coming through, but he's still a work in progress. They have yet to figure him out fully, you know.
Well, linebacker is kind of like a thing to pass. You don't need an amazing one anymore. It's nice to have.
Apparently, the Bears feel like they do.
Because Darius Leonard's all over
the Bears with their defensive philosophy. It seems like they got. It feels like Roquan's going to be a huge part of what they're doing in Chicago. So.
Yeah, always be on defense because you're always going to third down.
Jeez, that's one way to play a football game, man. That's one way. Special teams.
I hope they're offering like a loyalty discount for showing up for season ticket holders because this is going to be bad.
They're moving into a new stadium here pretty soon, so hey, that's
one of the smallest.
I mean, that's a new wave. The small stadiums are the new wave. Washington's doing the same thing. I don't want to talk about Washington. Please don't make me.
Just be glad we're not going to be FedEx anymore, man.
You mean the...
You don't have to worry about human feces falling on you from a sewer pipe above your head or falling off a guardrail almost into a quarterback on the sideline.
No commies, baby. But, yeah, well, Bears fans, that should make you feel better, man. Like, as most of the stuff I just...
You have Justin Fields and you have...
Right, most of the stuff that I just said about the Bears could be said about the Washington football team. Or the Washington Commanders. Anyway. All right. Well, that just about does us for the NFC North, man. That felt pretty good, though. Appreciate the chats that we got. Got some dude who's trying to promote us, or trying to. Want to become famous? Buy followers, primes, and viewers on mountviewers.com. Thanks, man. Hopefully we do become famous.
Oh, and if anybody hates our comparisons or thinks differently of like the Chase Claypool versus like Darnell Mooney's of the world, feel free to comment. Because we're probably going to keep doing this. And feel free to comment on our post for the division.
Comment on the Instagram post too, because like we'll bring those kind of debates into the podcast, and we will address every single question asked in the chat. So if you're listening,
we might even start doing like Instagram stories for these comparisons just to add the interactions to it. Because not everybody's going to be available for the live ones to give us that feedback. But we can always go back and make an Instagram story to see what the consensus is.
One thing we forgot to mention before we sign off, congratulations to Rob Gronkowski on a fantastic football career. Good shit, Gronk. Love to see that, man. You think so?
Season, but you rest up there in many games, man.
But yeah, Gronk.
I hope he's back because that best ball lineup I was actively drafting, and then he went and retired like 4 hours after that pick. I was a little even.
All time, really quick, rapid fire.
He can go eat.
Is Rob Gronkowski the best tight end of all time?
I'm gonna give him the nod, because he contributed to blocking. Not a lot like Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez. Antonio Gates was a little better of a blocker, I guess, but he's not as good as a receiver as Gronk. He's just adds that.
I mean, he was the most trusted target of the best football player of all time during his prime Super Bowl run. So, and then won another Super Bowl with him this past year.
And if he had stayed healthy, his numbers would have been eye-popping. Like, he would have obviously been the number one guy. He would have passed Gates and touchdowns.
Yeah, for sure. But when you play the style of play that Gronk's playing, it's hard to stay motherfucking healthy. You know? But yeah, congrats to Gronk. But yeah, that does us for our NFC North episode. Keep an eye out for our next NFC episode. Not sure what division that's going to be, but keep an eye out. What is it?
Ooh. I think it's East next. I think he talked about.
Oh yeah, you're right. We might have a pretty interesting guest on for the NFC East episode, but I won't spoil anything. But hopefully that'll be a good time. But either way, you got the boys breaking down the rest of the divisions in the NFC, and it's a good fucking time.
Keep the post notifications on to find out who that special guest is. Keep your post notifications
on. Follow us on all the social media accounts. Jaden is still killing it with that shit. We got our links in our bio for people always come to me about like questions about where you can find the YouTube. Like, oh, we couldn't find it. We spent an hour looking for it. Like, what you do? Go on Instagram, go to our bio, click on YouTube or Twitch, and then cast that to your TV. Like, it takes 2 seconds, especially with YouTube. Like, just cast it to your TV. Or go, if you have your YouTube account on your TV, click on the link in our bio, click on it, watch a little bit of a video, then go into your recents and find our video. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory. So hopefully you can find our videos in the future. And if you're listening to the audio version, we appreciate you. I mentioned last podcast, Sydney, Australia, and Pau Solo. I don't really mean to. I really appreciate Pau, whatever it is. What is it? Sao Paulo. Like, I don't.
I mean, my lisp right now might be butchering it a little bit.
Yeah, I don't mean to. I'm not throwing any respect on Sao Paulo or Sydney, Australia. Like, thank you guys. We really appreciate you listening to the audio version. But yeah, good shit. And we will catch you for the next NFC